Howdy, fellas. If you enjoy this one, please do subscribe, like, and leave a comment. I'll see you in the next episode. With Islam versus JDM on the horizon, I want to talk about this matchup because I think it's quite possibly one of the most interesting that the MMA landscape has to offer. Obviously, we were robbed of Ilia Topuria versus Islam, and it's tough because they're beefing so much on social media right now. But sadly, we get Ilia versus Charles. It's still a fun fight, and JDM versus Islam, which is, in my personal opinion, a very interesting fight. Now, does it have the star power of an Islam versus Ilia fight? Obviously not. And is JDM going to really sell the fight in a big way? Probably not. He doesn't have the strongest personality, in my personal opinion. I think he's likable, but I just don't think he has that oomph in him to be able to sell a fight in a really good way. He's more so the guy that we always talk about, where his skills pay the bills. But no, I watched him versus Belal, and I want to talk about him versus Islam and break down that fight because I think from his performance and Belal's performance, we can glean a lot about how JDM versus Islam pans out. So first thing that jumps off the bat to me is the grappling. Now, JDM showed that he has high level, at least takedown defense and reversals. And the reason I kind of toss Belal in there is because I know him and Islam have trained together and shared camps before and share somewhat similar fighting styles. So I think this could be a comparable level of competition that we see JDM take on. I do believe we are going to see Islam shoot. I think one of the real reasons Belal wasn't ahead in the JDM fight was because he refused to lead into his grappling when he needed to. I think that and a lack of pressure really shot him in the foot there. When he had JDM moving backwards against the fence was when I thought he was landing the most. He was shooting the most takedowns. He was mixing in the threat of the takedown. We saw JDM stay in range with that teep kick to the stomach. We saw him be able to utilize his mid-range boxing, and sure, Belal was landing, but it was also again when Belal utilized his volume and was on the front foot that he was having the most success there. And that's something that I believe Islam will be able to do. Now, will Islam be able to keep JDM down? That's another story. I do think though that Islam possesses a deep enough bag and has enough creativity in his chain wrestling to where that can make a substantial difference in this fight. Because sure, JDM might stuff the first takedown, but Islam can change an angle. He can switch from a double to a single. He can do so many things. He's so talented and creative. Pretty much every part of his game, he has such a deep bag of techniques he can go into, and we saw that late in the Poirier fight, right? He was striking a lot with Poirier, and at the end, he had a really high-level single leg that he swung out, almost like ran the pipe to finish that takedown. Did we see the best of the best in terms of JDM's takedown defense? I don't know. Was he pushed enough to showcase that in a big way? I don't think so. And is Islam going to necessarily fight the same fight that Belal did? I would think not. I don't know, and I'm not going to claim to know why Belal didn't do what he was essentially good at in this fight, in this past fight, but I do know that Islam is going for double champ status. He vacated the lightweight title, and he's moving up to welterweight to really challenge there. That to me doesn't spell out a guy that's going to have an ego battle. And for me, I think a really, really successful path for Islam is chain wrestling, is pressure, is staying heavy with the volume with his boxing, because Islam has pretty decent striking. Now, I'm not saying that it's JDM level boxing, but I do think that in the kickboxing department, in the creativity department, he's going to shock a lot of people. People are starting to slowly wake up to the fact that Islam, at least on a tactical level, can strike with some of the best strikers. And more so evident that he can go late into fights, which is something that I think JDM, a trait that JDM shares with him. I do think this fight is going to go late into maybe the 4th or 5th, if not a decision. And say what you want about Islam not really looking invincible anymore. I think a positive way of viewing that is he's also been through all of these wars, and he's shown us that, yeah, he can outlast tougher opponents. Now, JDM, we have the Gilbert fight, and we have this fight now to go off of in terms of him facing adversity and either getting the finish late or being able to get a decision going. I don't see this one being finished early, especially because I don't know what Islam's going to look like size-wise. I know he was always considered really big for a lightweight, so at welterweight, maybe it's going to be a more natural frame. Does he have the strength advantage against a guy in JDM that's more of a natural welterweight? Is JDM going to try and go back to the same blueprint that he used for the Belal fight? Does the Belal fight give him more confidence that he can stuff takedowns? Is he going to open up more with the striking? Because I did feel like there were certain points in that fight where JDM could have let his hands go more, especially a couple times when he had Belal hurt or he had wobbled him, and he really didn't step on the gas in a big way. He was much more happy to kind of just stay on the outside. And I don't suspect, again, that Islam is going to let him do that. You know, in terms of kickboxing too, it's mostly that very light leg kick. It's the teep kick to the breadbasket to kind of keep guys at range so he can keep his mid-range boxing going. But I don't see him setting up any kickboxing combos. I mean, there was that big knee against Gilbert Burns, but, you know, he timed that up really well, so maybe it is there. I do see Islam, though, being able to have more creativity in that department and perhaps a little bit more of an edge, at least in the long-range striking department. Then there's also the aspect that both these guys have trained with similar opponents' camps. JDM has been in the mix with Alexander Volkanovski. Obviously, Belal has been in the mix with Islam, so these guys are going to have a lot of intel on each other, and I'd imagine they're probably going to use each other as training resources. I really could see Islam winning this via decision. I could also see a Jack Della decision, but I think much more so Islam, especially with his mid-fight adjustments, is going to be able to make those finite tips of the scale so that he can get around some of Jack Della's mid-range boxing, and he can get around that kick to the breadbasket. It doesn't matter to me how high level of a guy you are. I'm sure everyone has tells, everyone has habits. They've got that experience with their training partners to be able to draw up a really solid plan of attack for the other. I don't know, for some reason I can't see JDM cracking Islam. Again, I could be wrong. I don't see necessarily Islam finishing JDM on the feet. I could see him dragging JDM to the ground and locking up a submission, but Jack Della, one thing I will say was when Belal had got him down, and it seems to be kind of a theme with the Aussies that train with Craig Jones, is that they're almost impermeable to wrestling or to letting guys get into compromising positions, or when guys do have those compromising positions, they're immune to panicking and further giving away a bad spot. And, you know, JDM talked about after that Belal fight just taking a breath and then starting to create a base, and I think that's super duper important. That's what a lot of guys fail to do and did fail for a while to do against the Dagestanis. Now it's kind of like, all right, let me take a second. There's a way out of this. And, you know, Belal is a wrestling threat, is a grappling threat, and for JDM to be that composed, I wonder if it's going to be the same way with Islam. Well, guys, do let me know what you think down in the comment section below. It's been your boy, of course, the combat consultant, the soundboard god, Jacob Cooperman, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.